Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at a column from page number 12 of the daily edition. This column evaluates the upcoming IPO listing of India's largest insurance company, that is the LIC or the Life Insurance Corporation of India. It takes a look at the challenges that lie ahead for the organization, along with the risks that is going to be faced by the investors who are looking to pick up stakes through the upcoming IPO. See, last year, the Government of India announced one of its largest disinvestment initiatives, which was a proposal to offload 5% of the government's 100% stakeholding in India's largest insurance company, that is the LIC. So, through this 100% government owned entity, the government was looking to raise a revenue of nearly 60,000 crore rupees, which would make this one of India's largest ever IPOs. So, as a part of this disinvestment policy, the government has opted for the IPO route or the initial public offering route, through which it is looking to sell 5% of its shareholding in order to bring a windfall gain to the state's exchequer. So, it's important to note that the proceeds of this disinvestment is not going to accrue to the LIC itself, but instead, its largest shareholder, that is the Government of India, is going to pocket all the proceeds of this disinvestment, which will bring substantial revenue to the government. So, as this upcoming IPO has generated a lot of buzz in the markets, investors have been eagerly waiting to invest in this IPO to pick up shares in India's largest insurance company. See, until a couple of decades ago, the LIC had a monopoly over the insurance sector, and even after the insurance sector was opened up for private participation, the LIC has continued to dominate the market. Through its dominant position, it has managed to build a vast network of offices and agents around the country, and it commands nearly 66% of the market share in terms of new business premium, and also accounts for 75% of the number of new individual policies that are issued. Under group insurance policies, the company commands a 81% share, thereby clearly establishing its dominant position in the insurance sector. Even though it faces stiff competition from around 23 private insurance companies, the government-owned LIC continues to dominate the market and happens to be one of the most valuable companies of India. So the government has always seen the LIC as a crown jewel and as a great asset, hence leading to its 100% control over the company. But now, as the government faces a shortfall in revenue and as it has laid down ambitious disinvestment targets, it is looking to offload a 5% stake, which will bring in a gain of nearly 60,000 crore rupees to the government. But however, as the expectations and hype surrounding the LIC IPO go up, the column is trying to flag a few risks for the investors and for the LIC itself. See, the first point to be noted is that the proceeds of the IPO shall not go towards the LIC. Instead, the government is going to retain the entire proceeds after deducting the taxes and other expenses. So, this in itself represents a risk factor for the investor, especially for retail investors, because the proceeds of this IPO is not going towards the LIC itself, and it's neither being used by the LIC for any expansion of its market share. Instead, it is being used to fund the government's efforts to bridge its fiscal deficit, thereby raising concerns over the future valuation of LIC's share prices. So, this in itself constitutes a red flag and a risk for investors, particularly the retail investors. Apart from this, even though the LIC has virtually enjoyed a monopoly in the market, of late, its functioning and operations have been severely curtailed by the complex regulatory guidelines of the regulator of the insurance sector, that is the IRDAI, or the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. Considering the significance of the LIC to the insurance sector and the overall economy, the IRDAI has brought in several strict regulations and compliance norms, which has often restricted and curtailed the flexibility available to the company to expand its operations and market share. For example, across the insurance sector, the IRDAI has placed very complex regulations regarding foreign investments, issuance of capital, restrictions on place of business, approval for remuneration and appointment for key managerial positions, and for paying commissions to the agents, which has ended up curbing the corporate space available for the company. Then, upon that, the government has imposed its rural and social obligations on the LIC, which directly affects its profit margins and as well as the effectiveness of its policy offerings. Apart from that, the LIC is considered to be a systemically important organization for the Indian economy, thereby placing it under the bracket of too big to fail institution. As the LIC holds a commanding position in the insurance sector and in the overall economy, any failure of the organization could have a devastating impact and a domino effect on the overall economy. So this heightened risk leads the government and the regulator, IRDAI, to take a very cautious approach towards regulation of the insurance sector, especially the activities of LIC. And this enhanced regulatory supervision has often affected the functioning of the insurance company. So in this context, when the insurance company is going to list through the IPO route, it will be subjected to more disclosures and regulations by the market regulator, SEBI. And despite all this increased regulatory pressure, the entire management control of the LIC is going to remain with the government itself, as the government would continue to be the majority shareholder. And this could prove to be both beneficial to the LIC and at the same time, it could also hurt the company. Because complete government managerial control over the company would instill greater confidence amongst policy holders and customers, thereby making it more attractive, which will help drive the sales of its insurance products. But at the same time, excessive government control would also mean that it would restrict the operational flexibility for the company. That too at a time when the LIC has been facing stiff competition from private insurance companies, which have started registering significant growth over the last few years. So this enhanced competition in the insurance sector over the last few years has started eating away the market share and the profit margins of LIC, thereby subjecting the company to further risks. See, until the year 2001, the insurance sector was entirely dominated by the state. So the LIC had a complete monopoly until then. But at the start of the new millennium, the government opened up the insurance sector as a part of India's economic reforms. And gradually, over the last 2 decades, FDI limit in the insurance sector has been raised to 74%. So this has led to nearly 23 private insurance companies to set shop in India, which directly compete with LIC. And with increasing liberalization of the sector, they are able to attract more investments, that to foreign direct investments, which allows these private insurance companies to be well capitalized. So this increased capital with private companies has allowed them to compete against the monopoly of the LIC and incrementally increase their market share over the last few years. So this increase in market share of the private insurance companies has come at the cost of the market share of LIC, which has also seen a muted growth in its insurance premium. See, between the financial year 2016 to 2021, the total premium of life insurance private sector players increased at a compounded rate of 18%, whereas the same for LIC was just at 9%, which indicates the double rate of growth being registered by private insurance companies. Then upon this, several recent policy changes introduced for LIC products has ended up reducing the surplus which was earlier being distributed to its policyholders. So this has reduced the attractiveness of LIC products for the policyholders and customers, and as a result, they are being driven towards private insurance companies. Then LIC has also suffered the full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, because over the last 2 years, its insurance claims have not only gone up significantly due to increase in COVID deaths, but its sales have also declined considerably as a result of the lockdown and restrictions, which affected the mobility of its agents who could sell the insurance products. So, declining sales during the pandemic, accompanied by increased claims, has dented the financial situation of the company as well. Along with all of this, the government has been known to use the LIC as a protector and rescuer of any bad banks which are likely to fail. And whenever few big banks have fallen into a dire situation, the government has pushed the LIC to capitalize these banks, thereby hurting the financial situation and the operational effectiveness and flexibility of LIC. For example, when the IDBI Bank and more recently when Yes Bank went through financial crisis, the government would push the LIC to use its large reserves and funds to invest in these banks and capitalize them in order to bail them out for the mistakes that they would have made. So, this task of bailing out bad banks, which has been thrusted upon the LIC by the government, has also affected its competitiveness, especially with the private players. So, in conclusion, while the IPO listing of LIC represents a great opportunity for the insurance sector and for the company itself, there are several challenges that lie ahead for the company, and there are several risk factors as well for the investors and policyholders. Now, let's take up another article from page number 12 that deals with the Eat Right India mission. This topic is in news because recently the Delhi police have introduced healthy meals in police station canteens, and they have got some of these canteens certified as Eat Right Campus under the Eat Right India mission. This is a flagship mission launched by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, which is a statutory body established through the FSSAI Act of 2006 under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The mandate of this statutory body is to promote food safety and to promote quality standards in the food industry. This statutory body launched the Eat Right India mission in 2017, which is being implemented full-fledged from 2018, in order to promote the concept of eating right and to promote the consumption of healthy, nutritious food. This mission launched by FSSAI is in line with the goals and objectives of the National Health Policy of 2017, and it also syncs with the vision and objectives of other government programs such as Poshan Abhiyan, Ayushman Bharat, and Swachh Bharat. Under the Eat Right India mission, the FSSAI has been promoting healthy and nutritious food, and it also certifies several campus canteens as Eat Right Campus. This is essentially a certification and a tag provided by the FSSAI, which indicates that these canteens are serving healthy, nutritious food, which would help in tackling several lifestyle related diseases and promote a healthy standard of living. So, under the Eat Right Campus certification program, campus canteens located across government institutions, police stations and military canteens, colleges, schools, etc., they could all apply for this tag, provided if they bring up the nutritious standard of their food to the standards prescribed by FSSAI. This mission is entirely focused on promoting nutritious and healthy food, which plays a direct role in combating several lifestyle related diseases. The focus of the mission is to encourage the consumption of such food which is safe as per the quality standards of FSSAI, and to ensure that the food served across campus canteens complies with FSSAI standards. Under the Eat Right Campus initiative, if a campus canteen has to be eligible for the certification, then it has to establish that it is serving only balanced meals by sourcing local and seasonal vegetables which are free from any chemical residue, and should also be including great sources of nutritious food such as pulses, millets, etc., and ensure that no processed or industrial food is used in these canteens. Because industry processed food is said to be high in trans fats and salt and sugar content, which is directly held responsible for several cardiovascular diseases. Constant consumption of industrial processed food not only leads to obesity but also leads to lifestyle diseases such as diabetes and hypertension, and in turn directly contributes to cardiovascular diseases. So these campus canteens will have to establish that they are eliminating trans fats, which are responsible for promoting bad cholesterol, and they have to reduce the consumption and usage of salt and sugar. These canteens will also have to ensure that they're making use of good quality cooking oil without reusing it multiple times as per the standards of FSSAI. Because repeated reheating of the same oil releases several toxic compounds which is extremely harmful to human health. Then under the program, the FSSAI will help in providing basic training to the cooks who are working at these campus canteens so that they are trained in cooking healthy food, and they would also be trained in following basic hygiene standards such as frequent washing of hands, following a strict dress code where the cooks mandatorily wear gloves and caps in order to ensure the safety and hygiene of the food which is being served in these canteens. So those canteens which are able to establish these standards, they can apply for the certification under Eat Right Campus. And based on a safety and hygiene audit, which is often conducted by a third party, the Eat Right Campus certificate is awarded to these campus canteens with a validity of 2 years. Following this certification, these canteens will be frequently audited and inspected in order to ensure that the food quality and nutritious quality is maintained. See, the Eat Right India initiative is adopting a judicious mix of regulatory guidelines, capacity building, collaborative and empowerment approaches to ensure that our food is good both for the people and the planet. It aims to promote better quality standards in the food industry and in the value chains, along with promoting better food choices amongst people while ensuring that our food choices doesn't harm the environment. To achieve this, it would require the collaborative approach of the entire government and several other stakeholders, including various ministries and departments of the government which implement key government schemes, along with proactive participation from the state level and district level authorities. This initiative adopts an integrative approach, or the whole of government and whole of society approach, which pools together the efforts of government institutions and the society. It aims for collaboration of various stakeholders such as consumer organizations, private businesses, farmers, scientists and experts, the youth, policy makers and administrators, and food professionals, nutritionists and dietitians. Through such collaboration and empowerment of the stakeholders, it aims to tackle foodborne illness and diseases, which are primarily related to our diet and lifestyle choices. So through this holistic approach, the initiative is trying to promote the right eating habits amongst the society so that the consumption of healthy, nutritious food could be promoted. Next, we have a few small articles in today's newspaper. So let's look at them one by one. On page number 7, we have an article that refers to the MH-60R helicopters that India is looking to procure from the United States. This ongoing procurement of the MH-60R helicopters is primarily meant for the Indian Navy. See, earlier, the Indian Navy had been operating the outdated Sea King helicopters, which have been decommissioned from service in the 1990s. These helicopters were primarily deployed on the frontline warships of the Indian Navy, including its aircraft carrier. So after the decommissioning of the Sea King helicopter, the Indian Navy was looking out for modern helicopters which could be deployed on these frontline warships and aircraft carriers of India. But this procurement process was delayed for several years due to frequent hurdles faced in the procurement process and due to the changing requirements of the Indian Navy. And as a result, it started facing an acute shortage of these critical frontline helicopters. So to address this shortage, India finally signed a deal with the United States in 2020, through which India is looking to lease and procure the MH-60 Romeo helicopters. And according to the article, The delivery of these helicopters has begun, and the final deliveries will be completed by 2025. This advanced helicopter of the United States has been designed by Sikorsky and has been built by Lockheed Martin for India after including several India-specific customizations to suit the unique requirements of the Indian Navy. These helicopters will be primarily used in an offensive attack role and as well as for surveillance, and could also be used for transportation and logistics if required. So according to the article, the first batch of these helicopters will start arriving in India very soon, and most likely they are to be stationed at the Kochi Naval Base. Once inducted into the Indian Navy, it would be the first major induction of helicopters in several decades. Now let's take up an article related to environment and ecology from page number 9. This article refers to a study that was published in Scientific Reports, which is one of the popular journals brought out by the Nature Group. This study, which was funded by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, has focused on the role of moths in promoting pollination, especially in the Himalayan ecosystem of northeastern India. See, generally, most moths are considered as pests, especially in their larval form, and hence they're often seen as detrimental to the health of plant species. But however, we do know the role of diurnal insects, which function during the daytime, such as bees and butterflies, in acting as critical agents involved in promoting pollination. However, not much is known about nocturnal insects and nocturnal moths, which are particularly active during the night time. But this study, which was conducted across northeastern Himalayas, has specifically focused on these night pollinators and how these insects play a key role in strengthening the ecosystem. According to the study, moths such as Telephassa and Cusilia were found to carry the highest quantity of pollen grains, thus aiding pollination in the region. Then even the Erebidae family of moths, which includes the Erebid moths, tiger moths, lichen moths, etc., were also reported to play a key role in aiding night pollination in the Himalayan ecosystem. Interestingly, moth species such as Achaea janata, which is often considered as a dangerous pest in its larval form, was also seen to be aiding night pollination as a moth. So this essentially shows the key role played by insects, including various species of moths, in aiding pollination and thus strengthening plant biodiversity. Now let's look at a couple of articles from page number 1 and 14 that is related to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which was recently finalized between India and the United Arab Emirates. In fact, this important topic was recently covered in detail by my colleague on the 18th of Feb. See, the UAE is a key trading partner for India, as India is a major importer of oil from UAE, along with several other goods and products. Plus, UAE is also a very big market for Indian producers, and as a result, there is a strong economic relationship between the two countries that is rooted on the foundation of energy security. Then upon this, the UAE is a home to millions of Indians who form the diaspora community as they find numerous job opportunities in UAE. And these Indian workers not only contribute to the economy of United Arab Emirates, but they also send back precious remittances back to India, which plays a crucial role in bridging India's current account deficit. So to further take forward this relationship, both the countries were negotiating a free trade agreement, and in a record 3 months' time, they have successfully negotiated the CEPA, or the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. According to the article on page number 1, this FTA is likely to come into effect by May, and it is going to provide enormous benefits to Indian workers who are working in UAE, as now it will become easier for them to send back remittances to India, and will also immensely benefit several Indian companies who are looking to invest in UAE, and will also drive up Indian exports to the country. Experts have pointed out that the biggest benefit of this FTA will be for India's gold and jewellery sector. Because under the SEPA, a duty-free framework is being created for gold and jewellery, which is going to bring enormous benefits to India's gold and jewellery industry. See, India happens to be a major importer of gold, and annually it imports around 800 tons. Out of this, nearly 70 tons was being imported from UAE. But now, India is looking to give preferential treatment to UAE with regard to gold imports, and it has set a 200-ton quota under its TRQ system or the tariff rate quota system. Under the TRQ system, for a particular product, duty-free imports would be allowed, or a highly concessional tariff would be levied by India on selected products up to the prescribed quota limit. Once the quota is reached, then a higher tariff is going to apply. But the allocation of a 200-ton quota is going to be very beneficial for Indian jewellery makers and India's gold industry, as it can now step up the gold imports from UAE at cheaper rates and thus help transform India into a hub of gold and jewellery industry. This is expected to shift several gold and jewellery businesses from other global hubs such as Hong Kong and Singapore, and as a result, it could give a major boost to India's gold and jewellery industry. Plus, this FTA is also going to increase Indian gold and jewellery exports to UAE, because previously the UAE was levying a 5% duty on Indian jewellery imports. Now this duty is going to be waived off, thereby enabling better access to Indian jewellery products into the UAE market. Plus, this would also allow Indian gold and jewellery businesses to shift back to UAE with increased investments, which is also likely to create more jobs for the Indian workforce in the United Arab Emirates. Then coming to the last topic, let's look at this article from page number 7. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has flagged off 100 kisan drones. Yesterday, the Prime Minister has launched 100 kisan drones meant for the agriculture sector, which will be used in spraying pesticides and other farm inputs onto agricultural crops. Such innovative deployment of drones in the agri sector is expected to bring benefits to the farmers, and it is also in line with India's drone policy, which was recently brought out, which hopes to transform India's domestic drone sector and turn India into a hub of drone production. In line with this policy, the government is backing several drone-based startups in the country, and this vision is likely to transform India into a global hub for drone production and drone technology. Because the civilian and economic applications of such drones is limitless, and it is going to benefit not just the agriculture sector, but also several other key sectors, including logistics, healthcare, education, etc. Now let's take a look at the mains practice questions. The first question: as the government readies LIC for an IPO, examine the challenges that lie ahead. Will regulatory requirements, competition, COVID-19, and government retaining majority control impact the company? The second question: discuss the objectives of Eat Right India mission. How can it help improve nutrition and health across campuses? Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the answer writing portal, for which the link shall be given in the description box below. So this concludes our discussion for today. Thanks for watching.